I'm Dr. Rachel Griffiths, and I'm with my father and partner in aquatics.
Dr. Tom Griffiths.
Welcome to the Drowning Files, where each week we share a lawsuit we've been involved in or another true story with suggestions to learn from these tragedies to save lives. What case do you have today?
Today I have several cases involving quarries, surface mining pits that are evident all over the globe. It doesn't matter what country you're in. Oftentimes, there are mining operations going on for either sand or for bluestone, what we call bluestone, slate, gravel. And these deep open mining pits eventually become filled with water, either rainwater and or springs underground water that comes up, boils up into the quarry itself and either fills it partially or all the way. Recently in the media, there have been a couple different quarry drowning cases. One was in the United States where a father and son both drowned, a double drowning, and they were attracted to this sand quarry adjacent to the river. And I don't know the particulars of that case, but it was the attraction of the quarry that brought the father son relationship to that quarry. In the other case, it was a memorial type of news piece for a young boy, a young teenager who drowned in a quarry. And this boy was a good swimmer, and many good swimmers end up drowning in quarries. And so both of these news pieces came out last week, one in the United States and the other one in the United Kingdom. And it reminded me of the quarry case I had in Pennsylvania, where there are a lot of quarries, and this young man went to great lengths to enter the quarry. He crossed the Delaware River on a railroad bridge, walked on that live railroad bridge to adjacent to the quarry. The quarry had what we call spill banks, most quarries do, or spoil banks, and it's where the discarded material that they're not using is put on hills around the perimeter of the quarry in a circle. And he followed these paths into this rough terrain and eventually made it to the quarry. What he did is what happened to most swimmers. And here's the problem with quarry drownings is we really can't explain exactly the physiological mechanism for the drowning. We know that they drowned, but we don't know what precipitated or caused that drowning, because in many of these cases the person was a very good swimmer. So in this case, he found some old mining equipment. It provided a raised platform from which to dive or swing off a rope swing that kids attached or young adults attached. Apparently went out off this structure, this mining structure overlooking the quarry, went into the water and never resurfaced. And this happens also where there's no surface struggle. Uh, People enter the quarry and don't resurface, don't come back to the surface. So, what I believe, and many other people believe, people who work around quarries and having been a scuba diving instructor and certifying divers in quarries as an open water classroom, if you will, we know that there are thermoclines, really drastic layers of water just below the surface. And so we think one reason why good swimmers drown in quarries is because once they get through that initial 10 to 15 feet of water, maybe, then there is a drastic and sudden change in water temperature. And it's not subtly mixed together, but it just appears all of a sudden. That can cause a gasping reflex where the swimmer might gasp because it becomes so cold, bring in water, and then they begin to drown, or they can have a laryngeal spasm, which is when the cold water hits the larynx, and the larynx shuts completely down so that you can't move air out, you can't exhale, and you can't inhale, which is terrifying. So this is the problem with the quarries is that you have layers of colder water which we think is implicated in this drowning. Usually there are many opportunities to dive or jump off a height so that the swimmer can become injured either on the way down to the water when they first hit the water. And so there's a variety of environmental factors that can impact the person in the water and create a faster drowning scenario. One of the real problems with quarries, it's usually a large area of land with rough terrain because of all the digging that's been going on and the piling up of material, unwanted material that is not intended for use for construction. And so you have a wide area of acres and acres with lots of water, and you typically enter the quarry from a height. And so keeping young people out of this quarry is difficult to do. And most of the quarries that I have inspected, and there have been many, do not do a good job of fencing the quarry or putting up barriers, putting up very concise and conspicuous warnings about how dangerous quarries are, and basically just warning younger people, teenagers and young adults, that this is a very dangerous place to enter into. And the water and the walls of the quarry can be quite hazardous. Um, I know in the United States, um, mining companies, have even had television commercials during the summer telling people to stay out of these quarries. But they're an attractive nuisance. I don't think that's legally correct, but they attract people to them because you get away from the general public. You're kind of hidden, you're kind of disguised, and you can behave or misbehave without being supervised. And I think that's one of the allure of quarries, in addition to their crystal clear water in many cases. And so a major award was offered to the parents of the child. Again, we keep saying this over and over. He was a teenager. Um, the money doesn't replace the child, but the message here is that we have to educate young people to stay away from these quarries and do not engage in swimming or diving activities inside quarries, because once something goes wrong, it's going to be a long time before any emergency help can get there, before any rescue and resuscitation and recovery can take place. And so that's why we really have to do a better job educating young people to stay out of these quarries.
And I guess just the general rule of not swimming anywhere unless it's a designated swimming area, not swimming anywhere you're not familiar with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. People should only swim in designated swimming areas, whether they're lifeguarded or not. It should be a designated swimming area. You know, preferably buoyed off, preferably with some rescue equipment there, preferably with an emergency phone, a designated swimming area, but not swimming in retention water ponds, not swimming in quarries, not entering rivers or creeks, with a lot of hazards there. I think that's the best catchphrase for our listeners is designated swimming areas only, and swimming with competent partners, um, wherever they swim. But I think that's the major takeaway of this discussion, Reach, as you point out, is designated swimming areas only.